So how much is your airplane worth? Okay, do you value it in money, how much I spent buying it, or how much I spent in upgrading it, or perhaps it's an emotional attachment that transcends money. I'm going to talk about that today, so stick with me on FlyWire. Hi, I'm Scott Perdue, and today on FlyWire I want to talk about how you value your airplane. Everything in life seems to be a balance, and between competing things, this and that. What's it worth to you? How do you strike that balance with an airplane? Okay, value of in dollars versus the lives of everybody on board. The Stearman behind me, we affectionately in my family call it 476. It was my dad's airplane, and it had been in the family. It's been in the family for over 45 years. I call my dad Harry, and 476 wasn't his first Stearman, it was his second. He had 1012 Mike with a couple of partners, and one of those partners crashed the airplane in a really poorly planned and executed formation incident. Perhaps a story for another time. My dad bought this airplane in Beaumont, Texas as a replacement. Okay, this one has been in the family for a very long time. He loved the Stearman, and when he passed away, I went through his logs, and I counted over 1,300 rides that he had given to folks in this airplane in 476. It was an amazing airplane, and one that we shared together. Okay, it was one of the most important things in our relationship is sharing that together, and it lived at a little grass strip called Carty's, just northeast of San Antonio in the outside downwind for the east runway at Randolph Air Force Base. I spent most of my weekends from junior high all the way through high school there during the day, drinking at night in high school. What can I say? There at Carty's. And this might have been the idyllic grass strip that folks think about when they think about flying in aviation in the past. There were two low-profile fuel pumps that you could taxi a low-wing airplane over the pumps. One had blue 100 and the other was green 115. Stearman engine is good with anything over 65 octane. There were about 6 of those steel tube rockers, the seats, and then a bench seat facing the pumps. And that was at the end of the grass strip beyond, and you can watch, frankly, that's where people watch traffic and graded landings, etc., and told stories. And I was the guy strapping in folks every day and getting them out of the airplane and getting them in, getting them out. And then I went off to the Marines out of high school and came back after 4 years to finish off my pilot license at Randolph. And 476 is always central to our lives. Okay, it was just a big part of it. With my private in hand, my dad began teaching me how to fly this airplane, and it was something that we shared. And it's very important to me. What can I say? Fast forward a bunch of years, and I'm stationed in Germany in the Air Force when my dad passed away. We had planned on taking about 3 weeks of leave. Most of that was going to be spent with him flying 476. That didn't happen, unfortunately. But by that time, 476 was in serious need of restoration, and I took that job on with support of my family and a lot of people that helped me over the 9.5 years it took to get 476 flying again. And I had a lot of help, and I appreciate that. It's very important to me, everybody that helped me. It's more than just an airplane. It's a member of the family. And I finished the restoration 21 years in 2002, and then took it to Oshkosh in 2003. And it will be Shannon's one day, and she's a good pilot, good Stearman pilot. You may have seen her in a few of my videos in the past. She's a good stick, and she's going to do fine with the Stearman. She's landed it very well. And that's the hard thing. But there's frequently a but. It seems like it. The last 20 years almost didn't happen. 20 years ago, 03, I took it to Oshkosh, and I had it judged. And my family had gone with me, but left Friday. Saturday evening, I was at the awards ceremony with my neighbor, Ron Piles, waiting to see what the results were. I was on pins and needles, and when they announced my name and the N number as the bronze Lindy winner for my category, It was pretty exciting. 476 is truly a special airplane, at least to us. I boxed the award up and sent it home. Didn't want to fly it home. I'm preparing for the 11, 12-hour journey back home. Took 2 days to come back to Texas. So the bottom line is that I, or more accurately, we, the family, value 476 on a plane way more valuable than money. It's something totally different. There's so much emotion and memory tied up in this airplane, and here it is hard to relate it to others. And now for the rest of the story. So, have you ever heard of a thing called continental cough? It's this thing where the W670 radial chokes down some fuel and it quits for a second or a fraction of a second, and then it starts running again. That was happening to my engine, and the conventional wisdom was put a little Marvel Mystery Oil in the fuel and you'll be fine. So I did. Believe what people were saying. Well, these people got to be smarter than me. I can testify that it's BS. What was happening was that the needle valve that meters fuel from the float bowl to the intake gets stuck full open for a fraction of a second. And that pressure head of fuel from the tank to the carburetor is about 5 feet, okay? And that's enough pressure you don't even need a fuel pump. When the needle valve gets stuck full open, there are 4 inlets that are a little smaller than a quarter, a little larger than a nickel, that allow fuel to the intake. And then the needle valve exposes those. Okay, put it simply, it put a lot of fuel into the intake. The engine chokes on it, and then it quits until it clears. Most of the time, it does clear, and then you got to change your pants. But for me, just after takeoff from a short grass strip on the way home from Oshkosh, it choked. I got 2 puffs of black smoke from the exhaust, and the prop stopped, straight up and down. And I was anywhere from 100 to 200 feet, maybe 300, I doubt it, in the air. And I'd already passed the fence, and the W670, doesn't generate a lot of power on a good day. There's not a lot of excess power in the climb, so you don't have an awful lot of altitude. But in front of me were a bunch of scrub trees on uneven ground, and then on my right I could see an open field and then a clump of trees, and back here was a really nice small clearing. And it looked like level ground. But it looked smooth, and I knew right away, though, I'm not going to make it to that field. I don't have enough energy. So what I did was 2 things at that point went through my mind in that second. One was, oh shit, I forgot to lock my shoulder harness, which in this airplane means when you hit something hard and you go forward, my forehead's going to hit the dash, and it did, and I got a little small scar here to prove it. And 2, Bob Hoover said in his book to fly as far into the crash as possible. Literally, Bob Hoover's words just appeared to me like that. And literally, that's what happened. Just as it was in the book, Forever Flying, that's what it was. It's a good read, so I suggest you read it. I turned right for that clump of trees, saying, well, that's where I'm going to end up. But I flew as close to the stall as I could. I figured that the lowest forward velocity would be the best bet for survival. And as long as I remained in control and didn't stall, that was the best choice, frankly. So that's what I did. There was no time for anything else. I hit the slightly sloped ground with my right wheel first. It broke off, and then the left folded under the wing. The tail of the airplane started to rise up as it was going to flip over, but the prop stopped it, and there it is right back behind my head, and I'll show you a close-up here in a second. Still with the Oklahoma dirt on it, by the way. It came back down, and for all the world, it looked like I had landed the Stearman gear up. I'll be honest, and I'll say it never occurred to me to do what I needed to do to save the airplane. It just never did. It's like I have to survive, and the airplane is basically going to be, I'm going to lose it. I had a similar situation during the first Gulf War when I was confronted with dozens of armored vehicles during a night movement. There's a big story here. I was leading 3 Humvees using NVGs away from forecast Iraqi thrust that we thought was happening. My first thought, for only a second or two, was I'd never see my kids. I saw a whole bunch, nearly 20 or 30 armored vehicles right in front of me on NVGs, and there shouldn't be anybody there. And then I just focused on my situation. Okay, I thought about my wife and kids, and then how do I get out of this? What's the best course of action? And that in this case, they hadn't seen it, so I decided to hide ASAP. Okay, and that was my solution to that part there. Getting back to the Stearman, I'll argue that this airplane meant as much to me than anyone else's airplane ever has to them. Memories of my father, nearly 10 years of restoration, the height of the Bronze Lindy, and then a few days later the low of the prop stopping and during the takeoff. Saving this airplane was not a factor. I rebuilt it once and frankly ended up doing it again, and you see it here now, back to being a full-fledged member of the family. If I had made any other choice, I would have missed the last 20 years and all the ones in front of me. Okay, I've still got the airplane and I still get to fly it. That's the point. Okay, everything can be fixed. And I wanted to see my wife and kids again, and I chose life. I guess what I'm trying to say is that in saving the airplane, that saving the airplane should not be a factor in your decision making. I'm trying to talk you into that. Wrinkling it, bending it, breaking it, no. The airplane's job is to get you on the ground and slowed down with the least injury possible. As slow as you can go and remain in control is the best strategy for survival, in my opinion, and that's what I'm trying to pitch to you right now. I think that the pressure of everyday life, that we get caught up in things and don't really think things through to the logical conclusion, and think about the risk of what we're doing and what might happen if it goes bad. Cars have incredible safety features built in over the last 40 plus years, but you still won't survive a head-on collision. Okay, an airplane has to be light to fly, which means there are a lot of compromises made on crashworthiness. Okay, they're actually much better. The ones they're making now are way better, but you can't remake this. Plus, most of the fleet is past middle age now, and that puts the onus on the pilot. That's you. Having an imagination good enough to predict the possible outcomes of your choices is one significant factor in a long aviation career. You have to be proactive to survive. You have to make the right choices. And choosing life, family, over airplane. Okay? As you see, it's still here. Think about how you value your airplane in your life. Maybe even throw in your time. If a crash costs you your life, the stark reality is you don't have any more time. I say choose life. Fly as far to the crash as possible, slow as possible, and live to fly another day. Fix the airplane afterwards or find another one. Okay? At least you have options that you can exercise. You have time to do something else. If you like to really think about the topic and prepare for the worst, if what happened to me happens to you, then you have time right now on the ground to figure out what your plan is. And if it happens to you and you haven't figured out the plan, you're going to execute something. Okay? If you have no plan, you're still going to do something. And it probably is not going to be the right thing. You have plenty of time right now on the ground to think up what your plans are for any given critical situation and create your boundaries. Okay? I'll do this and I'll do that. Or I'll shoot the approach down to this, or I'll take off in that kind of situation. Crosswind's too much for me, whatever. If you liked it, hit like and subscribe buttons. They look like this here. And I'd also like to thank my Patreon supporters as well. If you'd like to support the channel, I'll leave a link below in the description. So, bottom line, don't be a statistic. Don't make the news. Don't make a FlyWire video. Keep flying, and I'll see you next time on FlyWire.